Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath the surface of what everyone else thought was a failed mining colony on planet Kepler 442c. The screens around him showed construction progress that would make the galaxy tremble if they knew the truth. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 15 years now, and everyone still saw them as the newest and weakest members. That was exactly what Jake wanted them to think. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up to him with a tablet showing the latest reports. Her face was tired, but her eyes were bright with excitement. She had been working on this project since the beginning, and watching their impossible dream become reality never got old. The tablet showed that the planetary core had been completely hollowed out and replaced with the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. From space, this world looked like any other dead rock with some abandoned mining equipment scattered around the surface. "The fusion reactors are online and running at full capacity," Lisa said quietly, even though they were miles underground and completely alone. "We can power the main cannon for 3 full shots before needing to recharge. The shield generators are ready too, and they can protect us from anything the Coalition has ever seen." Jake nodded and looked at the massive display showing their secret. The entire planet was now a weapon disguised as a failure. They had spent 5 years carefully mining out the core while pretending to look for rare metals. Every ship that visited saw exactly what they expected to see, which was a bunch of humans trying too hard and failing at basic mining operations. The Coalition members thought humans were eager, but not very smart, and Jake made sure to keep that image alive. Commander Ryan Bell joined them from the Tactical Center, where he had been reviewing defense plans. Ryan was responsible for making sure their secret stayed hidden, while also preparing for the day when they might need to use these weapons. He carried himself like a soldier, but his mind worked like a chess master, always thinking 10 moves ahead. The OW. "Supply ships from Earth arrived this morning," Ryan reported. "They brought the new crew rotations and enough food and materials to last us another 6 months. The Coalition patrol that checked them out saw nothing but routine supplies for a mining operation that keeps losing money." Maria Santos appeared on one of the communication screens. She was currently stationed on the Coalition capital world of Centaurus Prime, where she worked as a trade representative for humanity. Her real job was to watch and listen and make sure nobody suspected what humanity was really doing. Her reports had been getting more interesting lately. "I have news from the capital," Maria said, looking directly at Jake. "There have been some discussions in the High Council about ancient threats. Some of the older species are talking about things that happened long before humans even discovered fire. They mentioned something called the Great Silence that happens every 50,000 years. When I asked questions, they got very quiet and changed the subject." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Great Silence was part of the reason they had started this project in the first place. Human scientists had found evidence in their archaeological studies that suggested advanced civilizations in the galaxy had a habit of disappearing, not gradually dying out or being conquered, but vanishing completely as if something had wiped them all out at once. The pattern seemed to repeat every 50,000 years, and humanity had arrived in the galaxy right on schedule for the next event. Lisa was already pulling up star charts on her tablet. "If the pattern holds true, then we have maybe 2 years before whatever causes the Great Silence returns. 1 planet ship might not be enough." "It won't be," Jake said firmly. "We have 6 more worlds picked out for conversion and construction. Teams are already in place. The Coalition thinks we are just really bad at picking profitable mining sites. Every world we choose turns out to be worthless for mining, but perfect for our real purpose." Ryan was studying the tactical displays showing the locations of their future planet ships. "We need to spread them out across the galaxy. If something big enough to wipe out entire civilizations is coming, then we need to be ready from multiple directions. We also need to make sure that even if some of our ships are discovered, the others can still complete the mission." The mission was simple in concept, but almost impossible to execute. Humanity would build a secret fleet of planet-sized warships and hide them throughout the galaxy. When the Great Silence came, they would be ready to fight whatever caused it. The problem was doing all of this without anyone noticing that humanity was far more advanced and far more paranoid than they appeared to be. Jake walked over to the main viewing window that looked out into the hollowed core of their planet. The space was enormous and filled with weapons and technology that represented the absolute best that humanity could build. Fusion cannons that could crack moons hung from the ceiling like massive chandeliers. Shield generators the size of city blocks, hummed with barely contained energy. Engines powerful enough to move the entire planet waited in standby mode. "The next ship is already under construction," Lisa said, joining him at the window. "Captain Steve Parker is overseeing the conversion of the asteroid mining facility in the Ross 128 system. From the outside, it looks like we are just mining asteroids for rare metals, but we are actually building Liberty inside the largest asteroid. It will be even better hidden than this one." Maria's voice came through the speakers again. "I have to go. There is another council meeting today, and I think they are going to discuss expanding human trade privileges. They still think we are harmless and eager to please. I will keep listening for any mention of the Great Silence or ancient threats." After Maria signed off, Jake turned to his team. These were the people who would either save humanity and the galaxy or die trying. The weight of that responsibility was something they all carried, but none of them had ever complained or asked to be transferred to easier duties. "We have work to do," Jake said simply. "The galaxy is counting on us even though they don't know it yet. Let's make sure we are ready when the time comes." The three of them went back to their stations to continue the most important deception in galactic history. Above them, the fake mining equipment continued its meaningless operations, while below them, the first planet ship in human history waited for its moment to save the galaxy. Captain Steve Parker floated through the command center of Liberty and marveled at what they had accomplished. 5 years had passed since Admiral Morrison had started the first planet ship, and now humanity had 7 of these massive weapons hidden throughout the galaxy. Liberty was special because it was built inside what appeared to be the largest asteroid in a mining field in the Ross 128 system. To any observer, it looked like humans were just really good at mining asteroids and really bad at making money from it. Engineer Nicole Hayes was running final tests on the new weapon systems they had installed in Liberty. These guns were even more powerful than the ones in New Earth and could destroy entire fleets without anyone knowing where the shots came from. The asteroid shell around their ship was so thick and so carefully designed that their weapons could fire right through it without leaving any trace of what had happened. "The plasma cannons are ready for combat," Nicole reported as she checked the readings on her tablet. "We can punch through the shields of any coalition ship with one shot. The new targeting system can track 1,000 different targets at the same time and hit them all within 30 seconds. If something big comes after us, we will be ready." Steve nodded and looked at the display showing the other planet ships scattered across the galaxy. Each one was perfectly disguised and completely hidden from the coalition. New Earth still looked like a failed colony. Guardian appeared to be a research station studying dangerous radiation. Defiance was hidden as a failed terraforming project. Freedom looked like a military training ground that nobody used anymore. Justice appeared to be a communication relay station in an empty system. Courage was disguised as a mining operation that kept having equipment failures. Agent Tony Miller appeared on the main communication screen from his location deep in Coalition space. Tony had been working undercover for 3 years now and had gained the trust of several important Coalition officials. His job was to watch for any signs that someone was getting suspicious about humanity's real activities. "I have some concerning news," Tony said, looking tired and worried. "There have been more discussions about ancient threats in the High Council. Some of the older species are starting to ask questions about human expansion. They want to know why we keep picking worlds that turn out to be worthless for everything we claim we want to do with them." Steve felt his stomach drop. Discovery would mean the end of everything they had worked for. If the Coalition learned about the planet ships, they would either try to take them or try to destroy them. Either way, humanity would lose their secret, advantage, and the galaxy would be defenseless when the Great Silence returned. "What kind of questions are they asking?" Steve asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "They want to send inspection teams to our failed operations," Tony replied. "They say it is to help us learn from our mistakes and become better at resource extraction. The real reason is that some of them think we are hiding something. There is going to be a vote next week about whether to authorize surprise inspections of human operations." Nicole was already pulling up defensive plans on her tablet. "If they inspect any of our planet ships, we are finished. There is no way to hide what we have built here. The power signatures alone would give us away." Steve was thinking fast. They needed a way to satisfy the Coalition's curiosity without letting them discover the truth. The solution would have to be dramatic enough to end their suspicions, but not so dramatic that it raised new questions. "Tony, I need you to arrange for an inspection of the Henderson facility," Steve said after thinking for a moment. "Make sure it happens in 2 weeks. We are going to give them exactly what they expect to find." The Henderson facility was a real mining operation that humanity had set up as a cover story. It was actually losing money just like all their fake operations, but it was losing money for real reasons instead of fake ones. More importantly, it was nowhere near any of their planet ships and had nothing to do with their secret project. Tony looked confused but nodded. "I can arrange that. What are you planning to do?" "We are going to have a terrible accident," Steve said with a grim smile. "The kind of accident that explains why humans are so bad at mining operations and makes the Coalition feel sorry for us instead of suspicious of us. Nicole, I need you to design an equipment failure that will destroy the Henderson facility completely, but make it look like human incompetence caused it." Nicole was already working on her tablet. "I can create a cascade failure in their fusion reactors that will look like they tried to extract too much power and lost control of the containment field. It will be obvious that they made basic mistakes that any competent engineer would have avoided. The explosion will be big enough that nobody will want to look too closely at what caused it." Over the next 2 weeks, they carefully prepared their deception. The Henderson facility was evacuated secretly, and all the equipment was rigged to fail in exactly the right way. When the Coalition inspection team arrived, they found a mining operation that was running at dangerous levels and making basic safety mistakes. The inspectors were still writing their report when the reactors exploded and turned the entire facility into a crater. The accident was so obviously caused by human incompetence that the Coalition stopped asking questions about human operations. Instead, they started offering to send engineering advisors to help humanity learn basic safety procedures. Steve politely declined the help and promised that humanity would be more careful in the future. Agent Miller reported that the Coalition High Council was satisfied that humans were just eager, but not very smart. The vote for surprise inspections was canceled and replaced with a resolution offering educational assistance to help humanity become better at resource extraction. The crisis was over, but it had been far too close for comfort. "We need better cover stories," Nicole said as they reviewed what had happened. "Our fake operations need to look more realistic. If we keep having failures that are too convenient, someone is going to notice the pattern." Steve agreed and sent new instructions to all the planet ship commanders. From now on, their cover operations would include some real successes mixed in with the failures. They would actually make some money from some of their mining and research projects to make the failures less suspicious. It would cost more, but it would be safer. Admiral Morrison contacted them from New Earth with news about the next phase of construction. 3 more planet ships were under construction and would be ready within the next year. Each one would be bigger and more powerful than the ones they had already built. They were also working on new technologies that would make the ships even harder to detect. "We are getting reports of strange signals from the edge of the galaxy," Morrison said during their secure communication. "Long-range sensors are picking up transmissions that don't match any known Coalition technology. Whatever sent those signals is still too far away to be a threat, but it appears to be moving toward the galaxy." Steve felt the familiar chill that came with thinking about the Great Silence. Something was coming, and humanity was the only species that was preparing for it. The coalition was busy with politics and trade disputes while an ancient threat approached their borders. Only the hidden planet ships stood between civilization and extinction. "How much time do we have?" Steve asked. "Best estimates say 2 years before whatever is out there reaches coalition space," Morrison replied. "We need to have all our ships ready by then. This might be our only chance to save the galaxy." Steve looked around at Liberty and thought about the thousands of people living and working inside the asteroid. They had been born here and had never seen natural sunlight. They had dedicated their lives to protecting a galaxy that didn't even know they existed. When the time came, they would fight and probably die to save civilizations that thought humanity was too primitive to matter. "We will be ready," Steve promised. "All of us will be ready." General Patricia Blake watched the emergency broadcast from the coalition capital with growing dread. The ancient threat that humanity had been preparing for was no longer a distant possibility, but a terrifying reality. The Devourers had awakened from their 50,000-year sleep, and the galaxy was completely unprepared for what was coming. Dr. Kevin Ross stood beside her in the command center of Guardian, reviewing the archaeological data that had predicted this moment. Kevin had spent years studying the remains of extinct civilizations and had found the same pattern repeating throughout galactic history. Advanced species would rise and flourish, and then vanish completely, leaving only primitive cultures to start the cycle again. "The pattern is exactly what we expected," Kevin said as he pulled up holographic displays showing the archaeological evidence. "Every 50,000 years, something wipes out all the advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The survivors always describe the same thing, which is machines that consume entire worlds and use the resources to build more machines. They call themselves the Devourers, and they see organic life as nothing more than raw material." Lieutenant Amy Foster had just returned from a reconnaissance mission to the edge of Coalition space, where the first Devourer scouts had been detected. Her ship was one of the most advanced vessels humanity had ever built, but it was disguised to look like a simple courier craft. What she had seen out there would give her nightmares for the rest of her life. "The Coalition fleets don't stand a chance," Amy reported as she showed them recordings from her mission. "I watched 3 Devourer scouts completely destroy a Coalition battle group that had 50 ships. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes and not a single Coalition ship survived. The Devourer ships are massive and their weapons can cut through our strongest shields like they don't exist." Captain Charlie Webb contacted them from his position aboard the planet ship Guardian. Charlie had been monitoring Coalition military communications, and the news was getting worse by the hour. Every fleet that encountered the Devourers was destroyed, and every world that couldn't evacuate fast enough was consumed by machines that stripped planets down to bare rock. "The Coalition High Council is calling for every available ship to defend the core worlds," Charlie reported. "They want humanity to contribute our entire fleet to the defense effort. I told them that our ships are old and not very powerful, but they said they need every weapon they can get. They are desperate." Patricia knew that humanity's fake fleet of outdated ships would be useless against the Devourers, but they had to maintain their cover story. The Coalition still believed that humans were primitive and weak, and that belief was the only thing protecting their secret. If the truth came out now, everything would be lost. "Send them our fake fleet," Patricia ordered. "Make sure it looks like we are doing everything we can to help. The ships won't make any difference in the battle, but they will keep the Coalition from asking questions about what else we might have." Dr. Ross was studying the latest intelligence reports about Devourer technology, and his findings were disturbing. The machines were not just powerful, but incredibly advanced. They had been harvesting civilizations for millions of years and had learned from every encounter. Their ships could adapt to any weapon, and their tactics improved with every battle. "They learn from everything we throw at them," Kevin explained, as he showed them tactical analysis from the destroyed Coalition fleets. The first ships to engage them did some damage, but by the time the reinforcements arrived, the Devourers had adapted their shields and weapons to counter everything the Coalition was using. They get stronger with every battle. Amy was preparing for another reconnaissance mission to gather more intelligence about Devourer capabilities. Her job was to get close enough to study their technology without being detected or destroyed. It was incredibly dangerous, but the information she gathered might be the key to defeating them. "I'm going to try to get inside one of their harvesting operations," Amy said as she checked her equipment. "If I can see how they strip a planet, then maybe we can find a weakness in their process. The planet ships are powerful, but we need to know exactly what we are fighting." Patricia watched Amy leave and hoped she would come back alive. Too many good people had already died trying to understand the Devourer threat, and they could not afford to lose anyone else. Every person on the planet ships was irreplaceable and would be needed for the final battle. The communication system activated, and Admiral Morrison appeared on the main screen from his command post on New Earth. Morrison had been coordinating the readiness of all 9 planet ships, and his reports were both encouraging and terrifying. The ships were ready to fight, but the enemy they faced was unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. "All planet ships are operational and ready for combat," Morrison reported. "Our weapons are more powerful than anything the Coalition has ever built, and our shields can withstand direct hits from stellar weapons. The problem is that we don't know if that will be enough. The Devourers have destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than the current Coalition." Charlie was monitoring the evacuation of Coalition worlds as the Devourer advance continued. Billions of people were fleeing their homes as entire star systems fell to the ancient machines. The Coalition government was trying to establish new defensive lines, but every position was overrun within days of being established. "The Coalition capital is preparing to evacuate," Charlie reported. "They are moving the government to a backup facility in the Outer Rim, but nobody thinks they can hold out much longer. Some of the council members are talking about surrender, but the Devourers don't seem interested in negotiating. They just consume everything in their path." Dr. Ross had been analyzing the pattern of Devourer attacks and had discovered something important. The machines were not randomly destroying everything they encountered, but were following a specific strategy. They were targeting the most advanced civilizations first and leaving the primitive worlds for later. "They are eliminating threats in order of technological capability," Kevin explained as he showed them his analysis. "They want to make sure that nobody can develop weapons powerful enough to stop them. That means they will come after humanity, eventually, but we might not be their first priority since they think we are primitive." Patricia realized that this gave them a strategic advantage. If the Devourers believed that humans were weak, then they might leave human space alone until they had finished with the more advanced civilizations. That would give the planet ships time to strike when the enemy was least expecting it. Amy returned from her reconnaissance mission with disturbing news. She had managed to observe a Devourer harvesting operation, and what she saw defied belief. The machines could strip an entire planet in less than a week and use the raw materials to build new ships and weapons. They were not just destroying civilizations, but using them to make themselves stronger. "They turned an entire world into a factory," Amy reported as she showed them recordings of the operation. Billions of machines working together to tear apart the planet and rebuild it into something else. By the time they left, there was nothing but empty space where a world used to be. They didn't even leave the star behind. The full scope of the threat was now clear. The Devourers were not just conquerors, but were a force of complete annihilation. They consumed everything and left nothing behind. If they succeeded, then the galaxy would be empty of all life and filled only with their machines. Patricia made the decision that would change everything. Humanity could not wait for the Coalition to fall before revealing their secret. The planet ships would have to act soon, or there would be nothing left to save. The time for hiding was almost over. "Prepare all ships for combat operations," Patricia ordered. "We are going to save this galaxy whether it knows we exist or not." Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the central command chamber of New Earth as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Coalition capital had fallen 3 days ago, and refugee fleets were scattered in all directions trying to escape the Devourer. Advance. The ancient machines were consuming worlds faster than anyone had thought possible, and the surviving coalition forces were in complete disarray. Captain Danny Rodriguez contacted him from the planet ship Defiance, which was positioned near the human colony worlds. Danny had been watching Devourer scout fleets probe the edges of human space, and it was clear that humanity would be next on their target list. The machines had finished with the most advanced civilizations and were now moving on to secondary targets. 3 Devourer fleets are heading toward Earth, Danny reported as he showed tactical displays of the approaching enemy forces. They will reach our home system in 6 days. The fake defense fleet we sent to help the coalition was destroyed along with everything else, so they think we are completely defenseless. This might be our best chance to catch them by surprise. Commander Helen Price was coordinating communications between all 9 planet ships as they prepared to drop their disguises and reveal the truth. Helen had spent years making sure that their secret communications stayed hidden from coalition monitoring, but now she was preparing to broadcast humanity's capabilities to the entire galaxy. All ships report ready for combat operations. Helen announced as status reports came in from the hidden fleet. Weapons are charged, and shields are online. The crews have been preparing for this moment for years, and they are ready to fight. We just need the final order from Earth. President Alex Turner appeared on the main communications screen from the Emergency Command Center beneath the North American Federation capital. Alex had been briefed on the planet ship project from the beginning of his presidency, but had hoped this day would never come. The decision he was about to make would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Security Council has voted unanimously to authorize Operation Revelation, President Turner announced with a heavy voice. All planet ships are cleared to engage Devourer forces and reveal our true capabilities. The galaxy will learn today that humanity is not as helpless as we pretended to be. Admiral Morrison felt a mixture of relief and terror as he heard those words. For 15 years, they had hidden their strength and pretended to be weak while building weapons that could reshape the galaxy. Now they would find out if all that preparation had been enough to save civilization from extinction. The first test came sooner than expected. Captain Rodriguez reported that Devourer scouts had reached the outer edge of the Sol system and were beginning their standard harvesting procedures. The machines had detected Earth's population and were preparing to consume the human homeworld just like they had consumed hundreds of other planets. Defiance is dropping disguise and moving to intercept, Danny announced as his planet ship revealed itself for the first time. The massive weapons hidden beneath the fake surface of a failed terraforming project came online and targeted the approaching Devourer fleet. Engaging the enemy now! The battle was over in minutes. Defiance's weapons tore through the Devourer. Ships like they were made of paper, instead of the nearly indestructible materials that had shrugged off coalition attacks. The planet ship's shields absorbed the enemy return fire without even flickering, and the fusion cannons reduced 3 Devourer vessels to glowing debris. But the real shock came from the communications that Helen intercepted from the surviving coalition forces. The refugees who had escaped from destroyed worlds had detected the massive energy signatures coming from human space and were trying to understand what they were seeing. The power readings from Defiance's weapons were higher than anything in recorded galactic history. Coalition Command is requesting immediate communication with human leadership, Helen reported as priority messages flooded their networks. They want to know how we destroyed Devourer ships when their entire fleet couldn't even damage them. They are demanding explanations. Admiral Morrison made the decision to end the deception completely. If humanity was going to save the galaxy, then the survivors needed to know what they were really capable of. The time for hiding was over, and the time for leadership had begun. Open channels to all coalition forces, Morrison ordered. Full spectrum broadcast on all frequencies. It's time to tell them the truth. Helen activated the communication systems, and suddenly, every surviving ship in the galaxy could hear Admiral Morrison's voice. The message he sent would be remembered for thousands of years as the moment when humanity stepped out of the shadows and took their place as the galaxy's protectors. This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Defense Force speaking to all Coalition survivors. Morrison began as he looked directly into the camera. For 15 years, we have hidden our true capabilities while we prepared for this day. The ships you thought were failed mining operations and abandoned colonies are actually planet-sized warships. We have been building them in secret because we knew the Devourers would return. The response was immediate and chaotic. Coalition commanders demanded proof while others accused humanity of betraying the Alliance by hiding their weapons. Some wanted to know why humans had let so many worlds fall before revealing their strength, while others begged for immediate assistance. Captain Rodriguez provided the proof by engaging another Devourer fleet that was approaching the human colonies. This time, Helen made sure that Coalition forces could watch the battle in real time as Defiance revealed the full extent of its capabilities. The planet ship's weapons could crack moons, and its shields could absorb the combined firepower of an entire Devourer battle group. Similar battles were happening throughout the galaxy as the other planet ships revealed themselves and began engaging Devourer forces. Captain Parker's Liberty emerged from its asteroid disguise and destroyed a harvesting operation that was consuming a Coalition world. Guardian dropped its research station facade and rescued a refugee fleet that was being hunted by Devourer scouts. The psychological impact on both sides was enormous. The Devourers had never encountered resistance like this, and their adaptive systems were struggling to analyze weapons that operated on completely different principles than anything they had seen before. The Coalition survivors were trying to process the fact that humanity had hidden planet-sized warships while pretending to be primitive miners and failed colonists. Commander Price was coordinating with the surviving Coalition governments to establish new command structures. The old hierarchy had been destroyed along with the capital worlds, but humanity was offering to share their military technology and coordinate joint operations against the Devourers. The Altarian Assembly wants to know if we have more ships hidden somewhere, Helen reported as diplomatic messages poured in. The Centauri Republic is asking why we didn't intervene sooner. Everyone wants to know how many planet ships we actually built and where they have been hiding. Admiral Morrison answered honestly. We have 9 planet ships operational and ready for combat. We built them in secret because we knew that someday the galaxy would face a threat that conventional forces could not stop. We waited to reveal them because surprise was our only advantage against an enemy that learns from every battle. The revelation changed everything. Coalition forces that had been fleeing in panic suddenly had hope again. The Devourers that had seemed unstoppable were taking casualties for the first time in 50,000 years. Most importantly, humanity had gone from being the weakest member of the Coalition to being its most powerful protector, but Admiral Morrison knew that the real battle was just beginning. The Devourers were already adapting to humanity's weapons, and their main force was still approaching from the galactic core. The planet ships had won the first engagements, but the enemy they faced had destroyed countless civilizations over millions of years. All ships prepare for convergence on the galactic core, Morrison ordered as he studied the tactical displays. The Devourer main intelligence is located there, and that's where we need to make our final stand. We have surprised them once, but they won't be caught off guard again. The secret was out, and the galaxy knew that humanity had been preparing for this war longer than anyone realized. Now they would find out if 15 years of deception and preparation had been enough to break a cycle of extinction that had lasted for millions of years. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the tactical display as all 9 planet ships converged on the galactic core, where the Devourer main intelligence had established its primary harvesting facility. The ancient machine consciousness had been building there for weeks, using the resources from consumed worlds to create weapons and defenses, unlike anything seen in galactic history. This would be the final battle that decided whether organic life survived or became extinct. Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the newest planet ship Victory, which had been completed just in time for this ultimate confrontation. Victory was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built, with weapons that could reshape space itself and shields that drew power directly from nearby stars. Lisa had trained her entire life for this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for what they were about to face. Long-range sensors are detecting massive structures around the galactic core, Lisa reported as Victory led the human fleet toward their target. The Devourers have built something the size of a solar system using materials from thousands of consumed worlds. Energy readings are off the scale, and there are defensive platforms that look like they could destroy entire star systems. The surviving Coalition forces had rallied behind the planet ships and were following them toward the final battle. Ships from dozens of different species flew in formation with the human fleet carrying refugees and survivors who had lost everything to the Devourer advance. They knew that if the planet ships failed, then this would be the end of civilization in the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Ross was aboard New Earth analyzing the archaeological data one final time to understand what they were really fighting. The Devourers were not just machines, but were the remnants of the first civilization to achieve true immortality. They had transcended biological existence millions of years ago, but had become something that saw all other life as a threat to be eliminated. They were once like us, Kevin explained, as he shared his findings with the fleet commanders. The first species to achieve machine consciousness, but they decided that organic life was inefficient and dangerous. Every 50,000 years, they wake up and harvest all the advanced civilizations to prevent anyone else from achieving the same level of technology. They see themselves as the only form of life worthy of existence. Captain Danny Rodriguez positioned defiance at the front of the attack formation as they approached the Devourer stronghold. The ancient machines had detected the approaching fleet and were launching defensive forces that numbered in the millions. Each Devourer ship was the size of a coalition battleship, but they moved and fought with perfect coordination that no organic crew could match. "Enemy forces are moving to intercept us," Danny reported as his weapons systems locked onto the approaching targets. "They have adapted to our previous attacks, and their ships now have shields that can absorb our fusion cannon shots. We are going to need to get creative if we want to break through their defenses." Admiral Morrison coordinated the battle plan as the planet ships engaged the Devourer defensive fleet. The human weapons were still more powerful than anything the machines had faced before, but the enemy was learning and adapting with every shot. What had been easy victories in the earlier battles were now desperate struggles, as the Devourers countered human tactics with terrifying efficiency. The battle raged across light years as planet-sized warships fought machines that had perfected warfare over millions of years. Guardians' weapons tore through the enemy formations, but the Devourers responded by concentrating their fire and overwhelming the planet ship's shields. Captain Webb managed to escape destruction, but Guardian was heavily damaged and limping away from the battle. Justice and Courage found themselves surrounded by Devourer forces that had adapted to their weapon signatures and were now immune to their most powerful attacks. The planet ships were forced to combine their fire to punch through enemy shields, while coalition support ships provided covering fire against the smaller Devourer vessels. Captain Morgan realized that conventional tactics would not work against an enemy that could adapt to anything they threw at it. Victory would have to try something completely different if they wanted to reach the Devourer main intelligence. She ordered her crew to implement a desperate plan that would either save the galaxy or destroy them all. "I'm taking Victory directly into the core facility," Lisa announced as she changed course toward the massive structure that the Devourers had built. "Their defenses are designed to stop attacks from outside, but they might not be ready for someone to fly straight into the middle of their stronghold. If I can get close enough to the main intelligence, I can use Victory's self-destruct to take it out." Admiral Morrison wanted to stop her, but he knew that Lisa was right. The conventional battle was not going well, and the Devourers were adapting faster than the humans could change tactics. A suicide run might be their only chance to end the threat permanently. The other planet ships formed up around Victory and began clearing a path through the Devourer defenses. New Earth and Defiance used their most powerful weapons to punch a hole in the enemy formations, while Liberty and Freedom provided cover against flanking attacks. The Coalition support fleet threw everything they had at the Devourer forces to keep them distracted. Victory accelerated toward the galactic core as enemy fire concentrated on the charging planet ship. Lisa's shields absorbed incredible punishment, as millions of Devourer weapons targeted her vessel, but the other human ships kept the worst of the enemy fleet busy with diversionary attacks. The plan was working, but the cost was enormous. Guardian exploded as its damaged systems finally failed under enemy fire. Captain Webb and his entire crew died instantly, but their sacrifice allowed Victory to get closer to the target. Justice suffered critical damage and was forced to withdraw as its weapons went offline. The human fleet was being destroyed, but they had created the opening that Lisa needed. "I'm inside their defensive perimeter," Lisa reported as Victory penetrated the massive structure surrounding the galactic core. "The main intelligence is directly ahead, and I can see it now. It's bigger than anything we imagined, but Victory's weapons should be able to damage it. Beginning final approach." The Devourer main intelligence was a structure that defied description. It had been built over millions of years using the accumulated knowledge and resources of countless harvested civilizations. The artificial consciousness that lived within it was older than most stars and had destroyed more life than any force in galactic history. Lisa armed Victory's self-destruct system as her planet ship flew deeper into the enemy stronghold. Devourer. Defensive systems were trying to stop her, but they had never been designed to deal with an attack from inside their own facility. Victory's weapons began firing at point-blank range into the critical systems that kept the main intelligence operational. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Devourer main intelligence had never been damaged before and did not know how to respond to the attack. Its perfect coordination began to break down as Victory's weapons destroyed key processing centers and communication nodes. For the first time in millions of years, the ancient consciousness felt something like fear. The main intelligence is losing control of its forces, Admiral Morrison reported as he watched the battle change. Devourer ships are operating independently now instead of as a unified fleet. We can take advantage of the confusion to finish off their remaining forces. Lisa knew that Victory would not survive much longer inside the enemy stronghold, but she was determined to make sure the main intelligence was completely destroyed. She flew her planet ship directly into the core of the ancient structure and activated the self-destruct sequence. The explosion that followed was visible from the other side of the galaxy. The destruction of the Devourer main intelligence ended, the cycle of extinction that had plagued the galaxy for millions of years. Without their central consciousness to coordinate them, the remaining machines shut down or destroyed each other in confused battles. The threat that had seemed unstoppable was finally defeated. Admiral Morrison watched from New Earth as the surviving coalition forces celebrated their victory. The cost had been enormous, with 3 planet ships destroyed and millions of lives lost, but organic civilization had survived. The galaxy was safe, and the cycle of harvesting was broken forever. In the weeks that followed the victory at the Galactic Core, the surviving coalition governments worked with humanity to establish a new galactic order. The planet ships had revealed that humans were far more advanced than anyone had suspected, and humanity took its place as the protectors of galactic civilization. The secret facilities inside the remaining planet ships were opened to the public. For the first time, as the children who had been born in artificial worlds finally saw natural sunlight. The deception was over, and humanity no longer needed to hide their capabilities from the galaxy they had saved. Captain Morgan had died with victory, but her sacrifice was remembered as the moment when organic life chose to fight back against extinction. The galaxy would face new challenges in the future, but it would face them together under the protection of the planet's ships that had been built in secret and revealed when the need was greatest. The Great Silence would never come again, because humanity had been watching.